Hello, my name is Mike Genulitis, and I'm the founder of Cornerbull Software. In this video, I'm going to show you how to configure Cornerbull Server Manager 2022 to save event log entries, Syslog Messages, and text log entries to a central database for monitoring, reporting, auditing, and compliance requirements. I'm also going to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each database type. Cornerbull Server Manager can centralize log entries to Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, and SQLite, as well as our own file system format. In an effort to provide faster, out-of-the-box implementation, our proprietary file system format has been deprecated and replaced by SQLite, an embedded RDBMS that requires no user setup. If your organization is using the file system format, we suggest migrating to SQLite. Server Manager uses two databases, a primary and an archive. The primary database contains the most recent entries, for example, the last 30 days, while the archive database contains data older than the primary database, for example, the previous 6 months. This format enables daily reports to run against the smaller primary database, limiting the size of the table scans while simultaneously allowing auditors to scan historical data on demand without affecting the performance of log consolidation and monitoring. From the Management Console, find the Explorer view, then scroll down until you see Data Providers. Then expand. By default, you will find 3 entries: Primary Log Database, Archive Log Database, and History. The Primary Log Database contains the most recent log entries. The Archive Log Database contains entries older than the Primary Log Database. The history contains execution status, which includes information such as the number of event log entries saved. To view the log database properties, right-click and select Properties. The Data Provider view displays. From the Data Provider view, use the Type drop-down to select the database type, either SQLite, MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, or File System. Use the Role drop-down to select how you would like to use the database. The following roles are available. Log Database contains the latest consolidated log entries. Archive Log Database contains archived consolidated log entries previously saved to the log database. Auxiliary Log Database contains auxiliary or backup consolidated logs, typically used to view old database backups for auditing purposes. History Database, only available when the database type is set to File System, contains monitor and report execution history. None. This setting has 2 purposes: first, to be used for database monitoring, and second, to be used to maintain database connection settings for later use. SQLite provides out-of-the-box RDBMS support, so there's nothing to download and install. SQLite was introduced in the summer of 2022 and replaces the Cornerbull file system format as the default provider, eliminating the need to create large temporary files when saving event log entries to the centralized log database, while simultaneously adding date, time column index support for faster reporting. Use the Path text box to specify the database path. Use the Connection Timeout text box to specify the maximum time to wait for an available connection in the connection pool before timing out. Use the Execution Timeout text box to specify the maximum time to wait for the SQL statements to complete before timing out. Lastly, click the Test button. If the database does not exist, it is created along with the required control tables. MySQL is the world's most popular open source database and includes a free community edition which can be downloaded from mysql.com/downloads. Use the Server text box to specify the host name the database engine has been installed. Use the Database text box to specify the database name. Use the username text box to specify the MySQL username. Use the password text box to specify the MySQL user's password. Use the connection timeout text box to specify the maximum time to wait for an available connection to the connection pool before timing out. Use the execution timeout text box to specify the maximum time to wait for SQL statements to complete before timing out. Check the hash mode to add hashing to each saved log entry, often used in Italy to fulfill government compliance requirements. Lastly, click the Save button. If the database does not exist, it is created along with the required control tables. SQL Server is the fastest option available and includes support for batch inserts, significantly increasing the throughput of Syslog Messages. Please note, SQL Express can only be used if saving less than 10 gigabytes of data. Use the server text box to specify the SQL Server hostname and instance. Use the database text box to specify the database name. Use the authentication method dropdown to select either Integrated Windows Authentication, which uses the service credentials to connect, or SQL Server Authentication, which uses a SQL Server-defined user account. When using SQL Server Authentication, use the username text box to specify the SQL Server username. Use the password text box to specify the SQL Server user's password. Use the connection timeout text box to specify the maximum time to wait for an available connection to the connection pool before timing out. Use the execution timeout text box to specify the maximum time to wait for SQL statements to complete before timing out. Use the maximum connection pool size text box to specify the maximum number of connections to allow. The default is 100. Check encrypt connection to enable SQL Server packet encryption. Check hash mode to add hashing to each saved log entry, often used in Italy to fulfill government compliance requirements. Use the encoding dropdown to enable Unicode support. Lastly, click the Save button. If the database does not exist, it is created along with any required control tables. Notice the access denied error. We have seen cases where after creating the database, an access denied error is immediately thrown. If this occurs, click the Save button again. If the error persists, verify the authentication method is valid. For more information on configuring log consolidation, please see either one of the following tutorials: Agent-Based Event Log Management, How to Centrally Consolidate Event Log Entries to SQL Server, Azure Active Directory Audit Log Monitoring, or How to Centrally Consolidate Syslog Entries. To see what has been saved in the database, from the Explorer view, find the Root Data Providers node, then expand. Next, expand the primary log database. Once expanded, you will find two nodes, All and Hosts. Expanding All reveals each host that contains saved log entries without any grouping. Expanding Hosts reveals your root host node structure. Expanding any hosts reveals any saved logs. To view a log, right-click and select View. To view a summary of the content in your primary log database, from the Explorer view, select the Dashboard node. The Dashboard view displays. From the Dashboard view, select the Log Database Summary tab. The summary is executed and asynchronously returns results one by one as they are received. Notice the scroll bar at the bottom. The summary may take several minutes to complete. To view more detail about a specific saved log, right-click on the row, then select Data Properties. The Data Properties view displays. Depending on the log type, the Data Properties view will display summary data, for example, the number of event log entries grouped by level and event ID. That's all I have for today. I hope this tutorial has helped you better understand how to configure the centralized log entry database and how to view the available database summary information.